1776 is an incubator platform that helps startups tackling grand challenges in areas like education, healthcare, energy, the environment, smart cities, to grow and scale faster and be more successful. We launched 1776 in April of this year, and we already have about 165 companies in our program. Of those, about 65 or 70 are squarely within our target industry. So we have about 40 education startups, we have about 20 or 25 healthcare startups, transportation startups, energy efficiency startups, things like that. The Challenge Cup's incredibly exciting. It's essentially a World Cup for startups tackling these grand challenges. So we're going to go to 16 cities around the world, 8 here in the US, 8 internationally, and we're going to go to hubs for startups in those cities and bring together 25, 30, 40 startups in each region, work with them for 2 days, connect them up with mentors, really help them understand more about the dynamics in their industries, do what we can to help give them the exposure, and then we're going to have them compete against each other to identify the most promising ones in each category. The great part is we then bring those resulting 65 finalists back here to Washington, D.C. in May of 2014, where they'll compete against each other, NCAA tournament style, education bracket, healthcare bracket, until we ultimately determine the winner of the Challenge Cup. So for those 64 finalists that come here to Washington, D.C. and actually compete for the Challenge Cup, they win support and benefit from our various corporate partners. They win, frankly, probably the most important thing for them is a lot of exposure and media attention. It's a real challenge when you're that 3-person startup with a big idea to sort of cut through the noise and really rise up and start to get traction. And then we do have cash prizes. So if they're one of the top 8 finalists, they receive a $50,000 convertible note, and then ultimately if they win the overall Challenge Cup, that's a $150,000 convertible note. A convertible note's a pretty standard way nowadays that early stage investors invest in startup companies. Many people have an idea that startups are something that happens in Silicon Valley, or maybe Silicon Valley in New York, when in fact, with today's technology, really anyone in the world can be building a potentially scalable startup. And it's happening increasingly in cities around America, but also in cities around the world. And we just thought that's a phenomenon that a lot of people don't really appreciate until they're exposed to it. So we came up with this idea of going around the world and finding the best startups and ultimately showing the broader global community what's happening in all these cities and what's happening within these industries.